that I got for this. So learning curve for Rust and Solana altogether steep. How can I overcome that in a limited time we have for the hackathon? All right, so this is a very good question. The way I think about it is like, because hackathon is this concentrated event, it might be a good opportunity to start learning new language, but I actually think it's better opportunity to meet new people. So figure out what are your strengths. If you are a React developer, find someone that actually tried to build something in Rust before or C++, and can serve as your like backend guy. And that way, like build a team together, and it will be much easier to spin up something. The other thing is, usually in my experience, like language is not the main barrier, but the frameworks. So for Solana, I highly recommend using Project Zero Anchor thing. It's a framework that makes it a bit easier to get going with Solana, because you don't need to like worry about like serialization, like binary formats on both the JavaScript and Rust side. And in general, it makes building the contract slightly smoother. It has like a concept of a global state that you can access and things like that. And Rust, just like pure Rust outside of Solana, there's a bunch of books that are good. Rust in Action is fairly good. You could start with that. And see basically like how that goes. But like for hackathon, I would say focus on your strengths most of the time and try to find a team. Okay, how to have a smooth transition from Solidity to Rust. So this question is kind of similar. It's a different language, and there will be a learning curve, right? Like if you used only Python before and you are switching to JavaScript and React, you will have a bad time. And like none of us like engineers actually like doing that. And learning new language is just hard, and learning new frameworks is even harder. So try looking at Anchor. Let me open the. So this is the Anchor repository. There is a lot of examples here, and most of them are fairly straightforward. If you look at the actual program, you can go to the repository, and you can see most of the Anchor programs. Actually, they are single file like lib. This, for example, built a tic-tac-toe game using smart contract on Solana, and you can see you define your data struct. So think of it at like from the top level. When I'm thinking about building smart contracts in Solana, it's primarily like starting from designing a database. So design your structs, describe them like this. This is all fairly straightforward. And then you just implement a bunch of methods that interact on those accounts. And this is, when you think about it, the language barrier here is fairly small. The hardest thing that you will probably encounter with Rust that takes the most time to understand is a concept of lifetime of variables and how to like interact with that. So spend some time playing with on the playground with that, like last playground. And other than that, this is just pure logic. Like you can see some of those like methods, they're just like straightforward, like bunch of like if statements. Like there's really not that much to it. So I would say like dive into it and try building something, even if it's something simple. Yeah, you see this like tic-tac-toe, 200 lines of code. If you wanted to implement it Solidity, I think it would be probably similar length. And Rust ultimately, like if you look at like larger, in larger sense, it's like operating system level language. So it can get harder than what you see when you are building on Solana. You could think about like threads, synchronization concepts, like direct access to memory, interacting with like file system. None of that is needed for building Solana smart contracts. This is really like building a command line application, single threaded. And you're just dealing with moving a bunch of like bytes around. Like that's like at a very basic level. but obviously you need to understand the business domain. So if you're building a tic-tac-toe, you need to know how to build that. All right. We're focusing on mobile users, and we couldn't find any good wallet for mobile users to integrate with our product. We implemented Trust Open Login for familiar Web2 login, but Taurus Wallet doesn't support SPL tokens yet. We looked into Solid, Phantom, and Math Wallet, but none of them are good for mobile users or Web3 users which are trying to onboard. So that's where we are stuck, trying to figure out the next steps. So there is a bunch of wallets that you could use. I think there's like Slope Finance. That's one. I think that's the right name. Hope I will not go to like, yeah. So that's a mobile wallet that's really good. There is another one. This like, let's go to Twitter. I think it was like that. If I can type, that's the requirement. So there's this one. So this one is fairly good as well. Try it out. There's another one that blocked. Come on, type. Okay, so these guys are integrating with Solana as well. They are not there yet, but soon. Another thing that you can take a look at the wallet adapter library. So this one has a lot of like wallets that it's implementing. You can see it like BitPy, Coin98. Not all of them are mobile, but it also started to have this wallet connect that's implementing a version 2 of the wallet connecting interface. So if someone on the call is actually a mobile developer, you could try to build your wallet with the wallet connect standard and hook it up to your website or the app that's running natively. Okay, having trouble. Did I answer everything in here? Oh, for Taurus. So Taurus itself and Open Login, the good way to onboard the users there is to use FTX Pay, where basically you ask user to log in with Gmail or Twitter, whatever, and then they fund that wallet with FTX Pay within your app. And that will support SPL tokens without any issues. Having trouble understanding BPF loaders due to unavailability of proper documentation. Also, we are currently facing some difficulties finding raw OBD reading kit for able to interact with the vehicle. Let's see if I understand the question here. Maybe flipping like if the person that asked that question, if you can type in the chat what you are trying to build, then maybe I can like think like how to answer this question. Right now, I do not necessarily understand it. Okay, how to approach building a changeable NFTs. This one is fairly straightforward. Go to docs, metaplex.com. And what you can do is there's on the metadata contract, there is a bunch of fields like this immutable field. Then if you leave it true, what you can do is actually update the URI and a bunch of other properties on the data structs, and you have authority to do that. So what will happen is you keep them mutable, you keep the authority, and you can basically update the URI, name, or any other field about your NFT within the wallet. So that's one way you could build it. Another way that you could interact with NFTs is through some burn mechanism in the contract. So for example, the user commits the NFT to your contract and then you issue a new one. And that's like changeable NFT as well. The mint will change, but like something to think about. All right. Best way to set up Solana on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Okay, so this is fairly straightforward question, I think. You can go to docs.solana.com, start building, and there is a let's make this a bit bigger. Command line, install Solana. Again, in the chat, this is the link. This kind of walks you through different operating systems. You basically run a bunch of curl commands, and that's it. And you're done. And you need to also in Rust. But other than that, it's like straightforward. One CLI for Solana called Solana, and then the other one is Rust. And maybe if you are building a React app, you should install like Node.js and Yarn. Other than that, that's pretty much it. The best documentation out there. I mean, this documentation is getting better, so I would try that. There is also Solana.com is starting to having a better documentation as well. So if you go to developers, my internet is a bit faster. This navigates to this docs, but there's also like a bunch of things that you have walkthroughs on our main page, bunch of videos, how to build smart contracts, and in general, tons of resources. So solana.com/developers. There is also build now that takes you to the dApp. That's a scaffold that I talked about like last time. You can click on it, and it has pretty much the whole end-to-end application, smart contract that you can do from the blockchain and the React, and you are good to go. All right. What's the quickest way to learn and build a good enough project? Build loud. I don't know. I mean, just start doing it.
Yeah. No worries. But I think these questions we can skip. Folks have a lot more specific questions, and they have some questions in the Q&A section and everything also.
All right. So you're saying let's switch. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think there's
let's see if I can.
There's some specific question here about Chainlink, connecting Chainlink. Maybe.
Yeah. So let me take a look at that. So I will first start with the Q&A from the top. Yeah. How do we schedule a transaction? So technically, there's no such thing as scheduling a transaction with the blockchain. And there's no mempool on Solana, so you would need to do it off-chain. And for that, you would need to do something. If it involves users signing something, you would need to replicate something similar that like exchanges are doing, and it's called like nonce transaction. It's like durable transaction nonces. So you basically create this transaction that has a nonce associated with it, and it doesn't like expire. So take a look at this. This is a proposal, but there's also a in the docs, I think for JSON RPC, it shows how to actually conduct the transaction like that. That can be sent, for example, by multiple people in like an offline way. So that's what I've done. For programmable and if using Metaplex, can we change the URI by using a proxy server? I mean, sure, you could. So the Metaplex standard does not force you into Arweave, IPFS, or any storage. So if you want to make it easy for yourself, you can use S3 bucket and just like update the JSON wherever. I personally think there's a from the decentralization point of view, that lowers the value to the users because it's not explicit to them when you are going to change it and how you are going to change it, but you can do it. Yeah, please ask the questions in the Q&A section. I think like keeping track of the chat is tricky. Okay, any possibilities of extending last date of submission? Okay, so this is not for me.
Yeah.
I understand Metaplex is pretty much an entire NFT storefront, but am I interested in just integrating NFTs to mint and transfer them around? No, so not true. Metaplex, when you go to when you go to Metaplex repository, it's actually a full set protocol that contains multiple smart contracts that are deployed on the Solana blockchain. So starting from the bottom, there's a token metadata program, and you can interact just with that. And that allows you to create metadata and mints, attach metadata to a mint independently of everything else that's happening in Metaplex. Then there's a token vault that lets you create constructs that are effectively allowing you to lock the NFTs in some form of smart contract. And on top of that, then we build the auctions and then the umbrella contract called Metaplex that kind of connects it all together. But if you wanted to, you could choose and pick which contract you use and build other pieces yourself. So if you don't like the English auction that we built, you can go and build a Dutch auction. Hopefully that answered it. Is there any code I can refer to create PDA in a contract and then access it back using Anchor? Sure, Anchor has plenty of examples for that. I don't know if I will be able to find one on the spot, but just search for find program address in the examples, and this will show you 100% how to do it in the examples further again. All right. We have probably 10 minutes left, so I will just keep going quickly. But if you have urgent questions, ask it. All right. How to use Arweave to store data on Solana blockchain, and how to integrate Arweave to store data to the project. Okay, so the integration right now with Arweave is you can do it in a couple of ways. What Metaplex is doing when it's uploading data to Arweave, it's attaching tags on Arweave, so you can easily look up the mints, for example, and then it's giving attaching link to Arweave transaction on Solana. So you have this bidirectional link, and the uploads is happening off chain with a centralized wallet, for example, to Arweave.
Jerry's gonna cackle himself.
How to use name service? Okay, so the name service is this.
Why do you think I'm gonna talk to myself?
All right.
I swear.
Let us this. Name service. There is a JavaScript thing, so if you are using JavaScript, you can just cook it up and interact with creating your own namespaces effectively. I think the portion that interacts, for example, with Twitter handles is not open source. So if you are looking for that, that's kind of tricky. If you have more questions about the name service, you can always go to Bonfida Discord and then kind of interact with it more. This was built by Bonfida guys. So hopefully that kind of covered how to encode metadata inside SPL token in a Solana blockchain level, how to send lumpers inside the program. Okay, so how to encode metadata. Take a look at the examples in Metaplex. It's showing you exactly how to do that. It's fairly straightforward. And then how to send lumpers inside the program. It's just system transfer. Is the code open source for upload file to? No, not yet. We'll open source it soon. We are working on the Scandi machine and the CLI for bulk uploads of the NFTs and open sourcing the interacting with Arweave part of Metaplex as well. So hopefully that covered that. How to update a token account metadata to mint. So everything is a PDA. So if you want to map the token account, you need to use the mint and then find the program derived address for a mint. Take a look at, again, Metaplex repository, maybe Metaplex nft.tsx, and it shows you how to do the find program address for the metadata from a mint. How to connect IPFS in Solana blockchain. The same way Arweave is connected, you could store technically an IPFS pinned link, using one of the global providers like CloudFront supports, for example, a gateway that maps to HTTPS for IPFS. I think that would be the easiest way to go about it. Currently, to add the name and symbol to SPL token, we need to, and also take some time. Yeah, that's true. We are working on some automation for the token list. The long-term plan is to use the metadata from Metaplex to store that all on chain and have it like decentralized, no approvals, but not yet. How to stake Sol programmatically. That's a good one. Take a look at the stake pool. This implements full interaction with the staking. There's a lot to cover. So yeah, take a look at the processor file, how it interacts with different staking phases. But bottom line, this is a fairly complex code, and you will dive deep here. How to import individual Metaplex contracts in your custom. So you just reference program addresses for the contracts. They are all grinded, so they will not change. And then you just do CPI to max contracts. Hopefully that works. How to implement bonding curve on SPL token. Okay, so the bonding curve. I think the good place to start for the bonding curve would be probably a token swap program. In general, the question is kind of too open-ended to talk about it. It would take probably like 30 minutes just to talk about like walking through the implementing a bonding curve, but the token swap program is to start. All right, FIDO. So how I am trying to build on top of Metaplex metadata contract, I have added instructions similar to create master edition to the contract to create a decorator PDA account, which creates conditions for updating the metadata URI and sets the metadata update authority to this new PDA account. Having difficulty testing this instruction, I saw there a Rust file located in the test, but could not find any documentation on how to use that. Yeah, I think specific questions like that, I would say try creating instead of calling it from CLI, try modifying a JavaScript frontend and try to call it from the frontend. I think this is how we are like primarily testing everything right now. Yeah, and you can also go on the Metaplex Discord and ask more specific questions like that. Maybe post some code examples. This is kind of like without the code, it's tricky to answer this. If we were to create CRUD app over a centralized database with the following tables: car, manufacturer, customer, we have to set up a foreign key relationship between those tables. How would you do that? Sure. So the way to go about the foreign relationships is using program-derived addresses. So let's say the manufacturer is related to a car, and then a car is related to a customer. So when you create a car, you create a program-derived address that contains a manufacturer in it. And inside the car, you also store the manufacturer public key. So you have this bidirectional relationship where from the manufacturer, if you know, for example, the ID of the car, you can generate the specific public key. And if you have the car, you can go up to the manufacturer and you repeat the same relationship with the customer. So program-derived addresses are key. How to connect IPFS. So I think I answered already IPFS and Solana blockchain. So this was already answered. Okay. She said upload tag tags, which contains mint key, and we have not minted an NFT at the time, so we are getting timed out. I would need to see the code for the upload file to go to the Metaplex Discord and tag me. It's like B_, and I will try to answer it there, maybe with some code example. Okay, what? All right, let's see. Can we create fungible tokens using Metaplex code? Sure, you can create a fungible token and attach metadata to it. All right, I think we should call it a day. We are almost at the hour.
No worries.
Hopefully that was helpful. 21 questions answered from the Q&A section and like 10 from the doc.
Not bad.
So I think we are golden. Happy to do another one since this one was a bit short. Later in the week, 30 minutes as well. If you have more questions, send them to hackathon coordinators. They will collect them for the doc and like either type the answers or hop on the session like that again. Thanks everyone for building on Solana and good luck with the hackathon.
Thanks, Bartosz.
Yeah, cheers.